Look, you paid interest on your mortgage last month. Want to know something wild? The Knights Templar invented that. I'm serious. Pull up your bank statement right now. See that wire transfer fee? Yeah, Templars, 1150 AD. That whole credit system that lets you buy a house you can't actually afford? Templars perfected it 870 years ago. I know what you're thinking. Banks are modern, right? Wrong. They're a medieval weapon that conquered more territory than any army ever did. And the guys who built them? They wore white robes with red crosses and took vows of poverty while becoming the richest organization on earth. Let that sink in. Friday, October 13th, 1307. Dawn's breaking across France. The king's soldiers are moving simultaneously in every city. They've got one target, these fortified compounds with white banners. The Knights Templar wake up to find their doors being smashed in. By sunset, thousands are in chains. The charges? Heresy, devil worship, spitting on the cross. But here's what nobody mentions in those arrest warrants. The Templars hold the mortgage on the king's entire kingdom. France is bankrupt, and guess who owns the debt? This isn't some religious purge. It's the most sophisticated financial crime in history. And I'm about to show you how they built an empire that makes modern banks look like complete amateurs. Most people think the Templars were just crusader knights. You know, warrior monks fighting for Jerusalem. That's the Disney version. Folks, the real story? It's darker and way more important. These guys built the world's first international banking system, invented financial instruments we're still using today, and accumulated so much wealth and power that kings literally couldn't function without them. Then they disappeared overnight. Their money vanished. 900 years later, we're still using their playbook. Let me show you how 9 broke knights created an institution that would make Goldman Sachs jealous. Jerusalem, 1119. 9 French knights approached the king with this unusual request. They want to protect Christian pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land. Noble cause, right? Here's the problem, though. 9 knights protecting thousands of pilgrims across hundreds of miles of bandit-infested roads. Do the math. It doesn't work. Either they're complete idiots or they're lying. Spoiler alert, they're not idiots. The king gives them headquarters in the Al-Aqsa Mosque, built on the ruins of Solomon's Temple. That's where they get their name, the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon. The Knights Templar. Now here's where it gets weird. For 9 years, they recruit no new members. 9 knights in this giant compound for almost a decade. What were they doing? The official history says praying and training. The evidence suggests something else. They were digging, under the Temple Mount, looking for something. Whatever they found, or claimed to find, changed everything. By 1129, the Templars emerge from obscurity with a papal bull. Pope Honorius II gives them official recognition. They answer to no one except the Pope himself. Not kings, not bishops, not local lords. They're exempt from taxes. They can cross any border. They keep all their spoils of war. And here's the big one. They can build their own churches and cemeteries. That doesn't sound important until you realize what it really means. They don't have to give the Catholic Church its cut. Every other organization in medieval Europe pays tribute up the chain. The Templars? They keep everything. It's literally the world's first tax-exempt multinational corporation, and it's backed by the most powerful authority in Europe. They're not a religious order. They're a financial entity with religious branding. Brilliant, right? The Crusades are expensive. Like, catastrophically expensive. A knight needs armor, weapons, horses, supplies, and passage to the Holy Land. We're talking the equivalent of $300,000 per knight in today's money. Most knights can't afford it. So they do what people have always done when they need money. They borrow. But who's going to lend to a knight who might die in the desert 3,000 miles away? The Templars, that's who. They've cracked the code. They create history's first secured loan system. A knight pledges his land as collateral. The Templars give him cash and credit. If he dies in battle, and most do, the Templars keep the land. If he survives, he owes them the money plus interest. Wait, hold on. Interest? The Catholic Church forbids usury. Charging interest on loans is a sin punishable by excommunication. The Templars have a brilliant workaround. They don't call it interest. They call it a voluntary donation for administrative costs. Same thing, different label. Genius. Within 20 years, the Templars own massive estates across Europe. England, France, Spain, Portugal, Italy. Prime agricultural land generating steady income. But land is just the foundation. The real innovation comes next. Pilgrims traveling to Jerusalem face this deadly problem. They need to carry gold for months of travel through territories crawling with bandits. Most get robbed. Many get killed. The Templars see an opportunity. Here's their solution. You deposit gold at a Templar house in Paris. They give you an encrypted letter. You travel light. When you reach Jerusalem, you present the letter at the Templar house there. They give you gold minus a small fee. You just witnessed the birth of the wire transfer, my friend. But it's more elegant than that. The letter itself has value. You can trade it, spend it, use it as currency. It's paper money backed by Templar gold reserves. In 1150 AD, the Templars invented instruments that wouldn't become common until the Renaissance, and they charge for every transaction. Sound familiar? The system absolutely explodes. By 1150, Templars operate nearly 1,000 houses across Europe and the Holy Land. Every major city has a Templar compound. These aren't churches, by the way. They're fortified banking centers with stone walls, armed guards, and vaults. Merchants start using the Templar network for trade. Nobles deposit their wealth for safekeeping. Kings use Templars as treasurers. Get this. The French royal treasury is literally located inside the Templar headquarters in Paris. Not supervised by Templars. Run by Templars. They manage the crown's finances, collect taxes, audit accounts, and make payments on the king's behalf. They're the Federal Reserve, J.P. Morgan, and the IRS combined. And they're accountable to no one except the Pope. Think about that for a second. Now the money really flows. The Templars aren't just facilitating transactions anymore. They're making markets. They lend money to kings for wars. They finance trade expeditions. They back merchant ventures. They're doing leveraged buyouts in the 12th century. A merchant wants to buy ships for a spice trade run but doesn't have capital. The Templars front the money in exchange for a percentage of profits. If the ships return loaded with spices, everyone wins. If they sink, the Templars absorb the loss but keep the merchants' collateral. It's venture capital with swords. And the Templars have this massive advantage. They have perfect information. With houses across Europe and the Mediterranean, they know commodity prices in every market. They know which kingdoms are at war. They know which nobles are bankrupt. They know which merchants are creditworthy. This is insider trading at continental scale. By 1200, the Templars are the most sophisticated financial network on the planet. Bar none. Let me show you just how dominant they become. In 1200, the annual revenue of the English crown is around £30,000. The English Templars control property worth over £3 million. That's 100 times the king's annual revenue. Just let that number sink in. In France, it's even more lopsided. The Templars effectively own 30% of Paris. They control the majority of farmland in the Loire Valley. Their fleet is larger than most national navies. And here's the uncomfortable part. They're loan sharks to royalty. When King Philip IV of France wants to fight England, he needs money. The Templars lend it to him. When he needs more, they lend again. By 1300, Philip owes the Templars an amount equal to the entire French GDP. He can't pay. The interest compounds. France is technically bankrupt, and a religious order owns the kingdom. This is the setup for what happens next. Philip has a serious problem. He's broke. He owes the Templars everything, and they're the only institution powerful enough to collect. He can't outfight them. Their compounds are fortresses manned by warrior monks. He can't outnegotiate them. They hold all the leverage. He has one option: destroy them completely. But you can't just kill the Pope's favorite knights without a good reason. You need cover. Philip is smart. He doesn't go after their money directly. He goes after their reputation. In 1307, he manufactures this heresy case. The charges are spectacular. Templars secretly worship a demonic head called Baphomet. They spit on the cross during initiation. They engage in homosexual acts as part of rituals. They're devil worshippers hiding behind Christian symbols. It's completely absurd. But Philip controls the French Inquisition. And under torture, people confess to anything. Always have, always will. Friday, October 13th, 1307. The coordinated arrests begin at dawn. The king's men have orders. Seize every Templar in France simultaneously. Give them no warning. Secure their treasuries. If word spreads, the Templars will move their gold. This has to be instantaneous. By sunset, 6,000 knights and sergeants are imprisoned. The Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, is in chains. Philip issues a European arrest warrant. He pressures other kings to do the same. England arrests Templars. Spain arrests Templars. Italy arrests Templars. The Pope, Clement V, is hesitant but trapped. Philip is threatening to invade the Papal States if he doesn't comply. In 1312, the Pope formally dissolves the order. In 1314, Jacques de Molay is burned at the stake in Paris. He maintains innocence until the flames take him. Legend says his last words were a curse. He summoned Philip and Clement to meet him before God within the year. Philip died that November. Clement died in April. Maybe coincidence. Maybe not. You decide. But here's the thing. Philip got rid of the Templars, but he didn't get their money. When the arrests happened, the Templar treasuries were found mostly empty. Ships left the port of La Rochelle the night before the arrests. Destination unknown. The Templars had a warning. Someone leaked. Thousands of pounds of gold, silver, and documented debts vanished. Templar fleets disappeared. Some say they went to Scotland. Others say Portugal. Some believe they reached the Americas. There's shaky evidence of Templar symbols in North American coastal caves that predate Columbus by 200 years. We don't know for sure. What we do know is that Philip declared the debts void, seized Templar property, and distributed it to the Hospitallers, another military order he could control. He died broke anyway. Karma's funny like that. The Templars are gone, but their system isn't. The banking infrastructure they built outlives them. Within 50 years, Italian merchant families, the Medicis, the Fuggers, adopt Templar methods. Letters of credit, fractional reserve banking, international branches, secured loans. The techniques persist. When you finance a house today, you're using a loan structure the Templars invented. When you wire money internationally, you're using their network concept. When banks charge transaction fees for every service, that's Templar economics. They built a system so efficient that it survived their destruction and became the foundation of modern finance. You're literally living inside their creation. Think about that next time you check your bank account. Now here's where it gets really uncomfortable. The reason Philip destroyed the Templars isn't because they were heretics. It's because they were too powerful. They become systemically important. Kings depended on Templar loans to fight wars. Merchants depended on Templar networks to trade. Nobles depended on Templar vaults to store wealth. When one institution controls that much of the financial system, it controls everything. Period. And when that institution has no accountability, answerable only to the Pope, exempt from local laws, operating across borders, it becomes untouchable. Until it's not. Philip's takedown is history's first too-big-to-fail crisis resolved by liquidation instead of bailout. He couldn't afford to save them, so he killed them and seized the assets. Problem solved, right? You think that sounds medieval? Listen to this. In 2008, Lehman Brothers held $600 billion in assets. It was deeply embedded in global finance, counterparty to thousands of institutions. When it failed, the system seized. Governments had two options: bail it out or let it collapse. They chose collapse, hoping to contain the damage. It didn't work. The crisis spread. Credit froze. Markets crashed. The global economy nearly imploded. That's the Templar scenario playing out with modern institutions. The mechanics are identical. An organization becomes so central to the system that its failure threatens everything. The only question is whether you save it or destroy it. In 1307, they destroyed it. In 2008, they saved it, barely. Next time might be different. We'll see. The Templars also show us something really important about power and branding. They were a financial empire disguised as a religious order. The white robes and red crosses gave them legitimacy. The vows of poverty made them trusted. The papal protection made them untouchable. But underneath, they were merchants running a multinational corporation with military enforcement. This is the ultimate regulatory arbitrage. By framing themselves as holy warriors, they accessed privileges no bank could ever get: tax exemption, legal immunity, border permeability, physical security. Religious branding is financial camouflage. Today we see the same pattern in different forms. Corporations cloak profit motives in mission statements about changing the world. Tech platforms claim to be neutral utilities while monetizing every interaction. Nonprofits operate like businesses with tax advantages. The Templars pioneered the art of power projection through institutional legitimacy. They built empires by controlling the narrative about what they were. And when the narrative flipped, when heresy replaced holiness, the empire collapsed overnight. Poof. There's a real lesson here about systemic risk. The Templars didn't fail because they were bad at banking. They failed because they were too good at it. They accumulated so much leverage over European monarchies that they became an existential threat to sovereign power. No king could function without them, and no king could tolerate that dependence indefinitely. The same paradox exists today with central banks, megacorporations, and tech monopolies. They're essential infrastructure. We can't imagine modern life without them. But that essentiality makes them dangerous. When one entity controls critical systems, it's only a matter of time before someone tries to take control of that entity or destroy it. The Templars teach us that dominance contains the seeds of destruction. Power attracts enemies, and the more indispensable you become, the bigger the target on your back. Remember that. Here's the final irony. The Templars were destroyed for being too powerful, but their legacy is immortality. They live in conspiracy theories about hidden treasure and secret societies. They're romanticized in movies and novels as mystical guardians of ancient knowledge. The historical Templars, brutal, calculating financiers, get transformed into noble heroes or shadowy villains depending on who's telling the story. The myth outlives the reality, and maybe that's the real power move. They lost the physical battle in 1307, but they won the cultural war. 900 years later, we're still talking about them. Their brand is stronger dead than it ever was alive. That's the ultimate long game. Build something so compelling that people can't stop talking about it even after you're gone. The Templars didn't just invent banking. They invented themselves as an eternal mystery. And mysteries? They sell forever. So next time you transfer money, finance a house, or watch a bank charge fees on every transaction, remember this. You're using Templar technology. They built this system. Kings tried to destroy it. It survived anyway. The names changed. The methods evolved. But the core innovation, an international network extracting value from every financial interaction, came from 9 French knights in a basement in Jerusalem. They didn't conquer with swords. They conquered with ledgers. And that conquest never ended. It just went digital. And here we are,